Hello, CVU members. Thank you so much for tuning in to our very first. What do you think, Jen? Does this count as a podcast? I think it
I
does.
don't know. I think it's fun.
Nicole Piper.
CVEU-CAST.
Yeah. Oh, she's a genius. Nicole Piper, your CVU president here with Jen Sims, your fantastic bargaining chair. We wanted to chat with you today about what happened at the bargaining table back in December, because it was it was a unique day, and we want everybody to kind of be on the same page and understand where we're at in bargaining. So I asked Jen to come here so we could have that conversation, and get everybody up to speed. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about is, what is a CBA? We talk about a CBA, we talk about a contract. Like, what is the fundamental job of a CBA to you, Jen?
To me, a CBA is an agreement between your employer and the employee, and it outlines what the workload looks like, what hours look like, what the working conditions are. And it was an interesting question that we bring it up because at the table we were asked a lot of questions about how does this benefit students? How does your CBA benefit students? And I think there's a disconnect with admin about what the relationship is to a CBA to an employer. And again, we all know that we're here to support students, but the CBA is here to protect us, to make sure that we don't have workloads that are so high we can't connect with our students. So again, our CBA is here as an agreement between employee and employer, and that is it.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I think that's helpful because, we fundamentally as educators, we see our working conditions as being our students' learning conditions, right? That's something that CTA talks
Mhm.
about a lot. I think that we would all agree with, but that doesn't mean that it's appropriate for like some kind of student success program to be in a CBA. That's not what it's for, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that leads us into just kind of, Jen, if you could just walk us through, what did the day look like on our bargaining table date on 12/17?
Yeah, a little bit of a shocker. I think the five of us ended up in the room and saw 16 additional administrators, our leads, directors, principals. Oh my gosh, an array of people from admin that sometimes we don't even interact with on a daily basis showed up to our bargaining session and um, asked a lot of questions. But a similar theme between all of the questions were things like, what is this? What does your CBA solve? What problem are you solving and how does it help students? Um, which again, we just went over what a CBA is. It's not here, to help the students. It's here to give teachers the working conditions so that they can do their job. And the problem it's trying to solve is to help us do that. We all know that Canvas has had issues. We all know that PowerSchool takes longer to document. We know that our workload increases. Um, the emails about completing a task and it needs to be done by 4 o'clock and you get the email at 3 o'clock. So those kinds of questions we were hoping to solve at the table that day, but instead it became a lot of administrators asking a lot of questions and almost in a way that wasn't productive. When we come into bargaining, it's supposed to be both sides having an open discussion, having the time to share both sides and opinions, but it's not a time or a place where you come to argue points. And it started to feel like that was what was happening at the table that day. So we listened to administrators' questions. We took really detailed notes and we wanted to make sure that we brought this all back to all of you because these kinds of questions impact all of us, not just the five of us at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jen, could you go back even to so prior to 12/17, how did we end up in this situation with all those administrators in the room?
Of course. Yeah, so this is the first time April Warren approached us at the beginning of our bargaining cycle this year and said, we have an idea. Instead of us going back and forth a lot, because there are five of us and there are administrators who are not part of our daily interactions together between teachers and admin, we'd really like to try a trial period where we bring in administrators who could speak to the portions of the CBA as we discuss them. And we thought that sounds really good, right? Instead of going back and forth and them going back and meeting with their administrators later and trying to explain what we talked about at the table, that everybody's just on the same page. However, a disconnect happened when CVEU asked for a list of CAVA's administrators that would be attending. And we were told we would not be given that list. And so that's why it was a shock when we showed up at the table. So we had a lot of volunteers on CVEU side who were willing to come and talk on our behalf and speak about different parts of the workday and how it affected different campuses and different groups within our union. But unfortunately, when we jumped into that room, seeing 16 administrators, and really not following kind of the rules of engagement, I would say, for how bargaining should look at a table. We decided not to bring in our experts and keep them on the side, but that is how we got started. It was a suggestion from April, and sounded like a good idea. I think with perfect parameters, it could be something that we look at in the future.
Yeah, Jen, that's kind of where what I was going to ask you next was like, are we against the idea in principle of having extra people at the bargaining table to ask questions and discuss ideas?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think now we know um that there need to be kind of some rules of engagement. There has to be a give and take on both sides. I definitely could see it being beneficial in the future, but I think with ground rules, something that CVEU and CAVA set up prior so that each side is given a list. Um, we don't want our CVEU members stepping in and seeing 16 different administrators, some people that they don't even interact with, and have questions come from those people. So I think in the future, we would have to do a one-on-one. So CAVA would bring one person, CVEU would bring one person, and we'd have more of a civil conversation. Because I think it is fair. I teach third grade. I don't teach high school. I don't teach middle school. I'm not a guidance counselor. I'm not a psych. I'm not a sped teacher. And so it's nice to have people who are experts on, our CVEU side and how it affects their department on a daily basis is really important to our contract.
Yeah, I like how you said that we're, this is something that could be good, but we would need some parameters, right? Some kind of schedule. We would need some release time for our members to come, right? Um,
Yes.
so it's not the idea that we're opposed to. It is the way that this actually went down, at
Yeah.
this first attempt, the way that it was done. So
Yep.
I think we kind of hit on this next question that I had for you, Jen. Why was this unusual in bargaining? And it's, I think you've touched on this already, but back and forth is normal in bargaining. Disagreeing is normal in bargaining. Asking questions is normal in bargaining. It is very out of the ordinary to have a bunch of people and not having a list of who those people are going to be. It was a little strange that they wanted us to re-present articles we had already presented. That's not very standard. It's not supposed to be a debate necessarily,
Yes.
or like a
Correct.
like a surprise what the questions are.
Yeah.
Like they could have
Yeah,
done all those
exactly.
questions ahead of time, I think, and we could have been more prepared if we had gotten them in writing. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it just didn't really fit the usual structure, what we would expect for bargaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And I think you hit on this too. We had some amazing folks who rallied really quickly and were ready to come in and just bravely volunteered, like, yes, I'll come speak
Yeah.
for my team. They were incredibly knowledgeable and they were prepared as they could be. But because Kava didn't give us what we needed to give to them, we're not going to bring members into a room where Jen said it did feel uncomfortable and we didn't feel like we had a chance to prepare our folks. So
Yeah.
even though there were people ready, we were not going to bring them into that environment at that time.
Exactly.
And then Jen, if you can hit a little bit more on, and you did touch on this on your original answer, you were really thorough,
Sure.
but you know, what do you think it shows that many of the administrators kept asking about many of our sections of our proposals? What problem are we trying to solve here? Like, what do you think that shows us?
I think it shows, from my perspective at least, that administration still has a very big disconnect on what a CBA is. And it almost makes me want to give them some asynchronous trainings with some quizzes in there for them to do for CVEU because it feels like it feels like they don't understand that this contract is supposed to benefit teachers to make them better employees so that they can get tasks done. And constantly asking what problem we're trying to solve makes it feel like we aren't educated enough. Like we aren't, and educators are very educated. We don't need micromanaging. So problem we're trying to solve is the problem we all know about. There's not enough time in a day. There are too many tasks to do. There are too many reports to fill out. We're getting, multiple emails about the same thing from multiple different people. So the disorganization that comes from the CAVA administration and the way that it is formulated right now seems to be their disconnect about what problem they're trying to solve. And it's
Yeah.
more, we're trying to fix an administration problem so that we can do our jobs properly. um, but it felt like they expect CVEU to have all the answers, and I don't know what they were trying to gain from that question, but it was a pretty annoying question.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, and I think it also shows a disconnect with the the workload and the tone of the work year this year.
Oh,
Jen and I, our reps, our leaders are hearing nonstop about how hard everyone's working and how frustrating it is, how much longer things take with Canvas and Power Schools, how they're just keep being more trackers and more trackers,
yes,
and they won't stop. Um, and so the fact that our administration couldn't put together that everybody is overworked and that there's not enough time in the week to do our work and that that is the problem we're trying to fix is a little bit disturbing. It's like, why
yeah,
aren't you aware that your employees are working after hours, are working weekends, are born ragged, are missing time with their families? Like, why don't you know that? And
yeah,
I don't think it's a lack of communication from CVU. And frankly, I don't think it's a lack of communication from our educators. I think it is like you were saying, like a kind of a fundamental misunderstanding of what the role of an employer is to
correct.
the people who work for them, which is to give a fair workday that they can be successful within, which clearly we do not have right now, which is what we're fighting for.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty, well, that leads us to kind of the, looking forward questions. What happens next? So we do not have another bargaining date yet. We were waiting until after the break to make a new bargaining date. So we will be going back to the table. We were able to kind of turn the day around on the 17th, and we did get a proposal back to them. So it did end up being a productive day, although it started off odd. So we're going to be going back. Obviously, we don't know. We're waiting on CAVA counters on workday and caseload. We're not sure when or how that's going to come to us. So at this point, really our goal is like we want everybody to know what happened. We want everybody to know what our proposals are, right? We'll be resending out our summaries and our proposals again with this. Um, Basically, right now, our job, us collectively, all CVU members, is just to know what's going on and to talk about it, I think is where we should be right now. Because this is our union, this is our contract, this is our workday. Bargaining doesn't just move forward because Jen and the team go sit at the table. Bargaining moves forward because we're all talking about it together and working on it together. So if you're watching this, thank you so much. Like that is the first step to that. Please do look at the summaries and the proposals. Please talk to your team. Please talk to your reps. I hope that this can be a conversation that everybody's having of, our administration doesn't understand that our workday is unsustainable and untenable right now. So we need to keep sharing and being open and continuing to be, the professionals we are, but being really clear that we want to be the best we can for our students and that we need support to do that. Jen,
That
anything
is
you want to end with for the team?
That was it. And we're approachable. So email us, come to our meetings. We had our first town hall meeting on Monday, which was really exciting. So we'll continue those, and it's a chance to come and talk to us and get answers to questions and find out what happens in bargaining. It's not a secret. We are here to share with you what the process looks like because like Nicole said, it is all of us. It's not just the five of us at the table. So
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and we will be in touch soon. Bye, everybody.